Johnson, first, I'd love to say thank you for your service, sir, and thank you for stepping up for running for president. Fantastic speech. What would you say to any leaning libertarian, conservative or liberal, anybody leaning libertarian, what would you say to them to get them to come and support you for president?
Well, to vote libertarian this one time. Vote this one time. We can always go back to the tyranny of the two-party system, but voting for the lesser of two evils is just that. Vote your conscience, vote for what you think is real change, and that's what you're going to get. And even if I don't end up winning, voting for me ends up making a difference in the way that whichever of the other two win view these topics.
I completely agree. Now you mentioned end the Fed in your speech. Are you going to stay true to that message? Are you going to attempt
if Congress passes legislation to abolish the Federal Reserve, I'm signing the legislation.
Fantastic. Well, thank you.
Same with legal tender laws. Same with competing parties.
Ron Paul as the president.
You know, as much as I would like to have that to have happened, I just don't think there's any way that happens.
Very unlikely, but if Ron gets the nomination.
Well,
I mean, a miracle, like hurricane coming, and we change the entire country right here, right now.
I don't think it is, and I made this decision back in January or in December when I'm looking at this, and I believed at that time that Ron Paul was going to continue. You know, they did not want stereo speakers up on stage. They just wanted one person up on stage, and it's easy to marginalize one person. Easier to marginalize one person than two people, and so that's why I did this. I just thought that this was really important to have a message of liberty and freedom on the stage nationally in the general election. And I want to stress how significant it is that the Libertarian Party is going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. It's really significant. I don't know if you saw, I'm on the ballot in Oklahoma as the Americans-elect candidate, the only Americans-elect nominee in all of the 50 states. That's because of the barriers they threw up against the Libertarian Party.
Well, with all the Republican pushing away from all the Liberty crowd and everything else that's going on, I think after this election, if Romney does get the nod, I think we will see a lot more of the conservative Republicans heading over to the Libertarian Party. Do you see this?
Well, I do too. And where's the pushback? Where's the push? The pushback would be with the Libertarian nominee for president. I happen to be that nominee. Like I said this before. I think if given the opportunity, every single one of you would be doing what I'm doing right now. I've been given that opportunity. I'm trying to make the most out of that opportunity. I do have a resume. I can do this job. I can do a good job at this job.
Great job. Hands above everybody else out there besides Dr. Paul.
Right.
Thank you,
Great
Gary.
job in New Mexico for 8 years, guys.
You sure did, Gary.
What changes do you think need to happen socially or politically so a third party gets their voice heard? Because it seems like they're not being taken seriously. What changes do you think need to happen?
Well, for me, I wouldn't be doing this right now if there wasn't the opportunity to win. But the only chance that I have of winning is to be on the national debate stage against the two of them. And to do that, I need to be polling at 15% nationally. I think that with Ron Paul's support, meaning Ron Paul supporters' support, that is a real distinct possibility. From there, anything can happen. That, of course, could be crash and burn, but I don't think that's what is going to happen.
Talk to me about the Federal Reserve talk. I noticed your some speech was a little different. You really put a stronger emphasis on it this time.
You know, I've been saying this for 3 years now that if given the opportunity, I would sign legislation to ban the Federal Reserve. And I don't think Congress is going to pass the legislation. And by the way, Romney right now is talking about as a concession to the plank that they're going to support auditing the Federal Reserve. Look, as President of the United States appoints the head of the Federal Reserve. So without legislation banning the Federal Reserve, the President of the United States could, in essence, order an audit of the Federal Reserve administratively, because the President of the United States appoints the head of the Federal Reserve. So that would be done.
Governor
Johnson, you talked to me about your relationship with Ron Paul. You know, you spent a lot of time up there talking about he came to you in 2008 for seeking your endorsement. And tell me about that.
Well, just that I was asked to endorse. I readily gave that endorsement. I went to Minneapolis. I spoke at the event there in Minneapolis. I got to spend time with Dr. Paul. When I went up to Minneapolis, he took his time to be with me. I was flattered by that, and I've just been flattered by. Well, I've just been in awe of his activism and his voice.
Hey, did you guys talk this year before the election at all about running, or?
Yeah, well, I went to tell him that I was going to run, and at that time he was undecided on whether or not he was going to run or not. In my opinion, his running created an atmosphere where there was potentially stereo speakers on stage talking about the same issues. It's harder to marginalize two than one, but I got marginalized out of the picture completely. I think he continued to be marginalized and is marginalized to this day, and that this is the fastest growing segment of American politics today.
Do you feel the Republicans cheated Ron Paul out of the nomination?
Yes, as they did me, just a place on the stage.
Yeah, and are you going to fight and be loud? What are you going to do to say? What are you going to say to Mitt Romney to get yourself up to be able to debate Romney and Obama?
Well, I think what needs to be said is weighing in on all those issues that I'm talking about. I think they're all rushing to see who can be the first to bomb Iran. We're going to find. Let me just offer up a prediction. If one of the two are elected, our civil liberties are going to continue to be eroded. We're going to have a heightened police state. We're going to still be in perpetual war, and we're going to accumulate more unsustainable debt.
Because the liberty message is so strong, do you think they're actually afraid to debate you, sir?
Yes, I do. Well, everyone is afraid to acknowledge that this voice even exists. And you've experienced this firsthand. You understand what I'm saying. But look, by default, I'm the voice. I want to make the case that I'm not a default. I want to make the case that I can do this job and that I can do a really good job at it, and I would base that on everything that's in my resume.
Yeah, you told the Weekly Standard you would support humanitarian war. I was wondering, is there an example of that in history?
Well, I've been debating about this. Do any of us want to stand by and watch a Holocaust occur? And that's the reason that I made this statement. No, none of us want to watch that. But what we end up doing is we end up with military interventions that have unintended consequences for everything. So in my lifetime, I don't know if there's a single military intervention that has resulted in intended consequence. It's always resulted in unintended consequence.
That's true. I don't know a point in time in history that has ever happened. Even World War II, when FDR knew about the concentration camps and publicly said he didn't want to look like he was supporting Jewish people, and that's why he didn't do anything about it or even publicly come out about it or even stop the Holocaust.
Well, and of course, World War II, Germany declared war against the United States. We were at war with Japan.
We can do 5 more questions and we gotta mosey on. Any questions for us? What can we do to help get the truth and liberty movement out there? I mean, what should independent journalists and citizen journalists be doing?
I think you guys do it every day, and my hat's off to all of you. I know that you beat your head up against the wall to do just that, and I think you've done a terrific job of just that. I applaud your efforts, but this is a redouble here of effort.
What are your thoughts on the economy? Do you think that there's actually going to be a pending collapse in the near future?
I don't think it's avoidable. I think the mathematics of continuing to borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar has a consequence that is unavoidable.
Hey Gary,
It is suspending.
my question to you is, you've done a lot of really amazing things with your life. I followed you since Freedom Watch. That's how I found out about you. So you've been Mount Everest, was it?
Yes.
I mean, you climbed mountains, you paraglided, and you now ran for office. Me, myself, I need to find out, I need to like get passion, not just about politics, but about how do you get the drive to do all those awesome things? Where's that power come from for you?
Well, I really believe that life is a journey, that it's not a destination. If you make it a destination, you are going to be sorely disappointed. So I always speak to people, find out what your passions are and pursue your passions. And your passion can never be getting to the top of Mount Everest, because you might not get to the top of Mount Everest. But if it's to get there, if it's to be a part of an expedition, to have a chance at doing that's life. So running for President of the United States, the notion here is to win, but the notion here is to be engaged in a process that changes the world at a minimum, and isn't, and that's the passion. The passion is to live life to its fullest every single day.
I have one question. One more. You say you want to audit the Fed or end the Fed. If auditing or ending the Fed would have a negative effect on the economy, would you have second thoughts?
Well, no. First of all, I fundamentally believe that transparency would not have a negative consequence. I really believe that auditing the turning lights on in the room with regard to the Federal Reserve and what the Federal Reserve does would be eye-opening to everybody, and everybody would see what an inside job this is.
What if it would immediately collapse the economy? I heard something to that effect once. That's why they keep it hidden, because
I don't buy into that at all.
We're on the path to collapse.
All right, guys. Yeah, we got to call it quits. The governor will be here for quite a bit longer.
Of course, of course.
We will be over at the Libertarian Party booth.
Would it be alright if I get a picture?
We'll be in.
How we doing, bro? I know James. Oh, the Red Sox? Yeah, that's how I saw it. I know.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you.
Well, thank you for your ride.
I'm everywhere. I am now. I don't leave the side. Sir?
It's right here.
That's right.
There you go.
Are you ready?
Take a second to ask you guys some questions. What do you guys think about Gary Johnson?
If Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, we're working hard to get it, and I think I'll be voting for Gary Johnson.
Yeah?
Yeah, the way I look at it is like a lot of people will have you try to vote between the lesser of two evils. No disrespect to Gary Johnson, but I think I'd rather vote for the lesser of two goods. If Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, then I'm going to vote for Gary Johnson.
So what do you think about the Libertarians? Definitely Libertarian Party.
Well, I consider myself a libertarian in many ways. I don't want to say too much because I'm a delegate.
Okay.
I didn't say my name yet, did I?
No, you did not.
So yeah.
Do you want to say it?
No, no, not really, not right now.
Okay.
There might be decredentialing and things going on, so we just have to play it low, play it safe right now. But I ran as the Libertarian candidate in 2000, so I mean I basically consider myself a Libertarian, and Ron Paul is a Libertarian in the Republican Party, and that's why I support Ron Paul.
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Anybody else? Anybody else want to talk to?
What was the question?
She'll ask you.
I'll ask you.
You will.
I will.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What do you think about Gary Johnson and his speech today?
Gary Johnson's speech was great. The problem with Gary Johnson's speech is that the thing is he doesn't understand, from what I've seen from Bob Winslow's Economic Policy Journal interview, he doesn't understand natural rights. Coming down to the fact that taxation is theft and natural rights Lockean philosophy, libertarian philosophy. So while Gary Johnson might be a great choice for libertarians, Gary Johnson's understandings, That's a great excuse.
Understandance?
That's probably not a real word.
Okay, keep going.
It's okay, but he doesn't understand natural rights locking in a liberal theory about natural rights. So, nor does he understand.
Alright, thank you. Thank you. Hi, how are you doing today?
Oh, great. How are you?
Good. What can I ask you questions on Gary Johnson and what you think of him?
Yeah, certainly.
What do you think about Gary Johnson?
I think he is exceptionally good. I think he's very polished as far as his presentation, and the YouTube videos he has on air are just incredible for the amount of money that he has. He's done it way better than Romney and Obama, which get hundreds of millions every month from the banks, basically.
What video particularly did you like the best?
His latest one called Imagine, it's on his website. It's just awesome. He tells it like it is. It explains all the good points and is very good.
Kind of like the average guy, would you say? Just the average citizen Gary Johnson represents?
Definitely so, and he definitely represents the best interest for this country, because we're gonna, as time goes on, his story is gonna become more true. It's just like Ron Paul. As time goes on, the story becomes more true, and he's gonna be a lot, you know, as time unfolds and shows that what he's saying is true. They get more and more popularity. So I'm glad that he's only 59 years old, and you know, 2016, if he doesn't do it in 2012, let's just hope for America's sake he'll do it in 2012.
So you're voting for Gary Johnson, right?
No doubt. There's no other choice.
Awesome. Love to hear that. Thank you for your time. You have a very unique perspective? I think so. Okay. Well, can I ask you what you think of Gary Johnson?
I do like Gary Johnson a lot. I think he's given somewhat ambiguous answers as far as foreign policy is concerned. He has said that on certain circumstances it might be necessary for us to intervene. Now that's difficult. I mean, that sounds humane on the surface, but you know, maybe sending troops abroad without a really clear objective, it might be a bad idea. I do like Gary Johnson. I like his stance on everything. It sounds humane going and intervening sometimes, but he has said things that make me leery.
All right. Well, thank you. Can I ask you a couple questions real quick? I wanted to ask you, what do you think of Gary Johnson?
Actually, I read about him on the internet, and
yeah?
I am a Ron Paul supporter, but I think I'll be looking a little closer at Gary Johnson now.
Awesome. How long ago did you look at him on the internet?
Probably about a month ago.
A month ago. Yeah. And what particularly do you like about Gary Johnson?
I read about his entrepreneurship in New Mexico. I like what he stands for. Articulate, intelligent, freedom-loving. Probably help our government out a lot with our spending. He's my kind of guy.
Awesome. So we can count on your vote for Gary Johnson, right?
I think so.
Yeah? All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I wanted to know what you think of Gary Johnson.
I like Gary Johnson. I think he represents the Libertarian Party real well. And you kind of see who my choice is.
Okay, are you going to look him up a little bit more after his speech today?
I don't know. I have to think about it.
You won't research him?
If Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination?
If Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, are you going to vote for Gary Johnson?
I'm still thinking about it. I am researching him. I am going to look him up more. But I just don't see the answer there in Gary. I really don't.
But you see an answer more in the other candidates?
I don't see any answer if we don't get Ron Paul. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, if we don't know, what do you guys think of Gary Johnson?
Oh, I liked him. I'm very impressed with him. It's the first time I've ever heard him. Yes.
Awesome.
I like to hear him. I like him.
He's a very strong speaker, and I was looking forward to his stance on the wars, and I got his position on that tonight. So I'm going to learn more about him.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, one question. What do you think of Gary Johnson?
Sounds pretty cool, man. I dig him. I hadn't heard him before on YouTube or anything, but yeah.
Are you going to look him up after today?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so if Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, are you going to vote for Gary Johnson?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
Hi. how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well.
Can I ask you a couple questions real quick?
Sure.
Holding that sign, what do you think of Gary Johnson?
Well, I like Gary because he seems like a real guy, you know, like a regular person, but he also has a business background and he's looking to allow personal freedom and keep the economy in check.
So we can count on your vote for Gary Johnson.
Oh, definitely.
What do you say to Ron Paul folks who don't know or don't like Gary Johnson yet?
Well, if you don't know Gary Johnson, you do need to get to know him, especially if you know Ron Paul. Ron Paul and Gary share a lot of the same beliefs.
Look at her.
And Gary and Ron Paul have a lot of the same beliefs, and they have the same philosophy. So if you like Ron Paul, you're going to like Gary Johnson.
Thank you.
Sure.
What do you guys think of Gary Johnson?
I love Gary Johnson, and the fact that he was a two-term governor of New Mexico, he knows how to govern. He really does have the experience. Over 750 vetoed pieces of legislation from the New Mexico legislature. This is the real deal. And, you know, he is a great guy. He's really working hard on this campaign, and he's in it to win it. And let's not forget, 5% of the general vote goes to Gary Johnson. He gets the Libertarian Party $95 million. That puts America with a legitimate third party. And we just have to look at that as a very important and special opportunity that may not come around again. There's enough Ron Paul supporters to put the Libertarian Party into big-time status. I like it.
Good. What can you say to Ron Paul supporters?
I've followed Ron Paul since before many of you were ever born. I read originally the Ron Paul newsletter, the Ron Paul Survival newsletter, and many others. My dad subscribed. And Ron is a great guy, but he is not immortal. Ron is definitely the father of the modern day liberty movement, but the liberty movement is bigger than just one man. Consider Gary Johnson, consider your local friends that are running for election, get behind them, change this corrupt system, this corrupt two-party system, and make it something that the Founding Fathers would be proud of.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to talk to us, Dick?
Well, I'm not sure I have that much to add after.
I was going to say, he nailed it, didn't he?
Well, I think...
Okay.
Well, you know, the only thing I have to say is I don't think there's not much to add after what what the other gentleman just said. Other than I think there's other solutions besides just political solutions. Like for example,
Yeah, you can look at me.
like for example, Bitcoin and there's that mountain hours currency thing, and there's solutions outside of just being the political system. And I like what Tom Woods said earlier, and people have to really think outside of just, well, how do we do it inside the political system?
What do you guys think of Gary Johnson?
He's awesome, great Libertarian candidate, and barring any miracle tomorrow, he's got my vote hands down. So, great candidate, great guy, greatest governor almost in all history. New Mexico is like best state under him. He's fantastic. He's wonderful. Excited.
What can you say to other Ron Paul supporters?
I mean, like I said, barring any miracle, your vote needs to go to this man, because this man understands liberty, he understands prosperity, states' rights, he's got it all down. He understands. If you believe in the Constitution, believe in Gary Johnson. Believe in Gary Johnson.
Even Ron Paul supports him, so if you're Ron Paul support him, support him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Can you say that?
Oh, yeah.
You just said that was awesome.
Yeah, Ron Paul supports Gary Johnson, so if you support Ron Paul, you should also support Gary Johnson. He's an amazing guy, gave an amazing speech. He's for liberty, and if you're for liberty, vote for him. Awesome.
Well, it wouldn't be my first pick. I'm here to support Ron Paul, but let's see how the Republican primary turns out this week.
What did you think of his speech today?
Oh, excellent. I'm a libertarian to start with, but with Dr. Paul and having to do it from the Republican Party from the inside, I understand where he's coming from, but I also understand where Mr. Johnson's coming from also. But I want to see what happens next week in the Republican nomination. And
if Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, would you vote for Gary Johnson?
Then we're going to have to turn gears and probably support Gary Johnson.
All right, thank you. Good. What do you think of Governor Gary Johnson?
I really like him, actually. I think he's the whole package. Next Ron Paul.
Yeah, what can you say to other Ron Paul supporters?
Well, I'd like to tell them I was a Ron Paul supporter since 07, 08 when he ran last time around. I did the delegate process this time around. I mean, I love Ron Paul, but unfortunately with the way that we've been treated by the GOP, I'm not willing to stick with the GOP. They've kicked sand in our face for how long, and I'm going to go with Governor Johnson. He's a better choice. I don't see any difference between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. I mean, almost none. They both play the pandering game. They both support NDAA. They both support the Patriot Act. They both support this huge foreign interventionism. They both support the continuing war on drugs. I mean, just ridiculous positions that I can't get on board with at all.
So you're going to vote for Gary Johnson, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Just heard you say you've never heard Gary Johnson talk before.
I haven't. It's true.
So what did you think of the governor today?
Well, today's the first time I've ever seen him, or I've heard him as governor, but the first time I heard of him speak. And yeah, I thought, wow, what a candidate this guy might be. And Vice President Paul, I don't know, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, so you're going to research him and look him up a little bit more after today?
Do a lot of research, yeah, but he sounds like a quality candidate. He's done great things in his home state, and the fact that it was predominantly Democratic, and he won and won again, I guess. Hey, I think that's some good magic there.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Today.
Pretty good.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
What do you think of Governor Gary Johnson?
I like Gary Johnson. I think he's a pretty good guy. I am a bit more social conservative, but I understand where he's going as far as gay marriages. Personally, I agree with Ron Paul more that marriage should not be an issue at all, and we should just get rid of the income tax like what Johnson said. I do like his position as far as ending the IRS, going through national sales tax. He also wanted to get rid of the Department of Homeland Security, right? Those 2 points alone should be more than enough. Yeah. Also, another thing I liked about him is I saw a lot of local, and I thought it was pretty cool he's willing to get out there on a platform where it's more, you don't really cost anything to go out there and take questions from actual individual people. He seems like a pretty good guy, and he has a good record from what he's seen from New Mexico.
So you're going to vote for Governor Gary Johnson?
Yeah, it's either that or vote for Goldman Sachs Chief Board Chase candidate. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Can I ask you a few questions real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. What do you think of Governor Gary Johnson?
I like his message. I think that anybody who's pushing the message of liberty, I think it's a good thing.
Have you ever heard him speak prior to today?
No, I haven't. Not except YouTube. That's pretty much it.
Okay. So you're going to vote for Governor Gary Johnson?
I think I will. It looks like Ron Paul's not, getting the nomination, so he's definitely going to get my vote.
What can you say to other Ron Paul supporters?
I don't know. I guess just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep talking about liberty. It's a good message. It makes sense.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Of Gary Johnson, I think he's rather in line with the same principles that Paul follows. So yeah, I'll probably be voting for him.
You will?
Yes, probably.
What can you say?
If Paul doesn't, if Paul, especially if Paul endorses him.
Yeah. What can you say to other Ron Paul supporters?
All I can say is both candidates are in an interesting position, and I think a lot of followers are not sure if they're going to want to vote for Paul still, even though if he drops out. Because I've met a lot of people who are like, I don't care if he drops out. I know he doesn't have a chance in hell. I'm going to vote for him anyway. So I don't know. All I can say is Gary or Ron Paul, either one. Vote for either one. Vote on your principles, both of them have a small chance, obviously, at this point.
Paul Ryan's budget might get this, huh?
Can I ask you guys a few questions?
Oh, sure, yeah, you bet.
I want to know, what do you guys think of Governor Gary Johnson?
Well, as I've said, here's the nomination process is over here at the RNC. If Ron Paul is not nominated, God in heaven, hallelujah if he does. But if he does not get nominated, these two established candidates have not earned my vote. They're not going to earn my vote. They're not going to fool me. I have the right to vote for who I want to vote for, and it's going to be that guy. It's going to be Gary Johnson. He's got my vote. Judge Jim Gray spoke in Cincinnati, where I'm from, recently, and he's a fantastic speaker. Gary Johnson's a fantastic speaker. He gives credit to Ron Paul where the credit is due. You know, Ron Paul, he ran as a Libertarian once, so party does not matter to me. You know, it does not matter what letters in front of your name, but if, in fact, the best guy is running on this ticket, he's got my vote, and this is the best guy. So he's got my vote. Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination this week. You know, the Republican Party certainly hasn't done anything courteous to Ron Paul, hasn't done anything to kind of energize or bring about any sort of love from the people in the Republican Party that love liberty. I mean, there's nothing liberty-friendly about the Republican Party except for Ron Paul. So it will be Gary Johnson, no doubt, and he will have my full support, my full energy, just as Ron Paul has as soon as this week's up. So
great.
Yep,
Thank
glad that
you
he's
very
here.
much. What do you think of Governor Gary Johnson?
In all honesty, I did not do a lot of research on him. I did do some research before Ron Paul was running, kind of waiting for Ron Paul to run. I've been a Ron Paul fan for a long time. But after this week is over with, most likely I'm going to be working on the campaign in Wisconsin. I'm already hooked up with a guy up there that's working on the campaign. So I think his ideas are a lot like Ron Paul. He's very, very similar. I will not vote for the other two candidates, so it's going to be Gary Johnson.
Awesome. Thank you very much. What else can you say to other Ron Paul supporters?
I hope that they can see Gary Johnson and realize that he's very similar. You know, he may the pro-life thing is an issue for some of them. That might be a big hindrance, but otherwise, everything else is good. Why vote for anybody else?
All right. Thank you so much.
The answers, but yeah, I'll give it a go.
What do you think of Governor Gary Johnson?
I like Gary Johnson. I like him a lot. Of course, I'm a Ron Paul fan, but Gary Johnson's good. He stands well on a lot of issues, and I think he's doing good things about the Libertarian Party, trying to bring it to the forefront. So we've had a lot of interesting talks. The group of us, there's a group of us, Ron Paul from Dallas. So we've had a lot of talks about him. So we're gonna see what happens after this go around with the Republican convention, and then we're kind of gonna go from there.
If Ron Paul doesn't get the nomination, are you going to vote for Governor Gary Johnson?
More than likely, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, you may want to edit that out, but yeah.
Anybody who's not yet? Well, thank
Not
you.
really, but yeah, I like him a lot, Gary Johnson. So
Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Can we talk to you? Yeah, can you ask you a question?
Yeah,
with a fancy camera there?
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
What do you think of Governor Gary Johnson?
Well, I like Governor Gary Johnson. I like the fact that he was one of the most, I think it was like vetoed, one of the few governors that actually is vetoed more, combined than any other governor in all the states. I agree with him that he's not funded by Goldman Sachs. You look at campaign contributions from Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, it's one and the same. Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase, Barclays, and I can go on and on. It seems like Governor Johnson is true to his platform, true to his beliefs, and is someone that I feel should be president.
So you're going to vote for Governor Gary Johnson?
Yes. And another thing, in terms of third party, he's one of the outside parties that has ballot access in all 50 states, and that's very crucial. And another thing, I'm a broadcasting major, and I studied broadcasting law, and something that people may not know is a rule called the equal time rule. It's U.S. Code 315, and it states that, for example, if a Mitt Romney commercial is played, Mitt Romney for president at mittromney.org, if his commercial is played here on a TV station in the state of Florida, Barack Obama or Gary Johnson can call that TV station and demand the same time slot or be on air around the same time as that Romney commercial. And it's the equal time rule, and that's a way I feel that can, number one, get the public to know more about Gary Johnson, and number two, get him at least to the debate platform. Unfortunately, with the debates, it goes off polling, and my opinion is the polling system is fraudulent. You look at Rasmussen, you look at, what's his name? Frank Luntz.
Thank you.